Chapter 1. The chapter about the pairs. No escape from bad deeds. The monk Jakupala determined to fulfill his practice even at the cost of his eyes, and eventually he attained awakening. The Buddha explained the deed he did in the past which caused his loss of sight in the present, and he summarized the teaching with this verse. 1. Mind precedes thoughts. Mind is their chief. Their quality is made by mind. If with base mind one speaks or acts, through that suffering follows one, like a wheel follows ox foot. The reward of good deeds. Mata Kundali, the son of a miser, died after paying his respects to the Buddha and was reborn in heaven. Later he came and showed his father the reward of good deeds, and his father was converted. The Buddha explained the matter with this verse. 2. Mind precedes thoughts. Mind is their chief. Their quality is made by mind. If with pure mind one speaks or acts, through that happiness follows one, like shadow which does not depart. Hatred is not overcome by dwelling on it. Tissa, an older relative of the Buddha, ordained and was vain and obstinate. The Buddha showed how he was also obstinate in the previous life and almost lost his head, and then he taught the monks with these verses. 3. He abused me, he struck at me. He overcame me, he robbed me. Those who bear ill will towards this, their hatred is never appeased. 4. He abused me, he struck at me. He overcame me, he robbed me. Those who bear not ill will towards this, their hatred is surely appeased. Hatred is overcome by kindness. A barren woman brings home a young woman for her husband. But every time the young wife conceives, the barren wife contrives an abortion. Through life after life, they consume each other's children, until brought to the Buddha, who taught them with this verse. 5. For not by hatred do hatreds cease at any time in this place. They only cease with non-hatred. This truth is surely eternal. One should listen to admonition. The followers of two monks of Kosambi fell into a dispute, and despite the Buddha's admonitions, refused to be reconciled. The Buddha retired to Pāḷi forest and was served by an elephant and a monkey. Meanwhile, the lay people refused to attend on the monks till they came to their senses. Eventually, they asked for forgiveness, and the Buddha taught them with this verse. 6. The others do not understand that we should restrain ourselves here, but for those who do understand, through that their dissensions will cease. Seek for what is profitable. Two brothers, Chulakala and Mahakala, ordained, and one went to a cemetery to practice and soon overcame the defilements and attained awakening. The other, however, did not work at his practice and was soon enticed back to the lay life by his former wives. The Buddha spoke these verses about these two. 7. Contemplating what is pleasant, with sense faculties uncontrolled, not knowing the limit in food, indolent, low in energy. Mara surely overthrows that one, like wind overthrows a weak tree. 8. Contemplating the unpleasant, with their sense faculties controlled, and knowing the limit in food, faithful with energy aroused. Mara does not overthrow that one, just as wind does not overthrow a mountain made of solid rock. Being worthy of the robe. Venerable Sariputta preached on generosity, and people decided to give alms. One man gave a robe, which they decided to give to Venerable Devadatta. When the Buddha heard about it, he related a Jataka about Devadatta, who, as an elephant hunter, disguised himself as a Pacceka Buddha in order to kill his prey, and then spoke these verses about him. 9. The one who, while he is still impure, would wear the renunciant's robe, unendowed with restraint and truth, he is not worthy of that robe. 10. The one who, steady in virtue, throws out any impurity, endowed with both restraint and truth, is indeed worthy of that robe. Discerning the truth. The future Sariputta and Moggallana retired from the world under Sanjaya, but attained no great distinction. Then they heard a summary of the Buddha's teaching and were converted. They tried to bring Sanjaya to the Buddha, but he would not go. His disciples left him, and he died unconverted. The Buddha spoke these verses, showing the difference between them. 11. Finding the essential in the unessential, seeing the unessential in the essential. They do not understand what is the essential and resort to wrong intention. 12. Knowing the essential in what is essential, and the unessential in the unessential. They come to understand what is the essential and resort to right intention. Skillful means. The Buddha's half-brother, Nanda, ordained, but yearned for the lay life. The Buddha promised him celestial sprites as a reward for his efforts in the spiritual life. Nanda put forth effort and became an arahat, and the Buddha was released from his promise. These verses were spoken about him. 13. Just as the rain can penetrate a house with thatching that is poor, so also passion penetrates a mind that is undeveloped. 14. Just as rain does not penetrate a house with thatching that is good, so passion cannot penetrate a mind that is well developed. The wicked will lament. Kunda was a cruel pig butcher who cared not for the suffering he inflicted and did no good deeds at all. Before he died, he started behaving like a pig himself and later fell into Aveji, the hell of relentless suffering. The Buddha summarized the events with this verse. 15. Here he laments. After death he laments. The wicked one laments in both places. He laments and he suffers vexation, seeing the defilement of his own deeds. The good rejoice. Dhammika, a good supporter, lay dying, and he requested the monks to chant the mindfulness discourse for him. Seeing celestial chariots coming to take him away, he asked them to wait until the monks finished chanting. But the monks thought he was asking them to stop and go away. Later, the Buddha explained Dhammika was reborn in the Dusita heaven, and he spoke this verse about him. 16. Here he rejoices. After death he rejoices. The righteous one rejoices in both places. He rejoices, he greatly rejoices, seeing the purity of his own deeds. The wicked suffer. Devadatta grew jealous and plotted to kill the Buddha. When that failed, he tried to cause a schism. Eventually, he wished to seek for forgiveness. But before he reached the Buddha, he fell into Aveji, the hell of relentless suffering. The Buddha summarized the events with this verse. 17. Here he suffers, after death he suffers. The wicked one suffers in both places. He suffers thinking, I have done evil, gone to a bad fate. He suffers much more. The good take delight. The lay supporter, Anathapindika, had 3 daughters. The youngest, after calling her father younger brother, died. The Buddha explained that Anathapindika was her junior in the Dhamma, as she had attained the 2nd stage of awakening and had been reborn in the Dusita heaven, and he spoke this verse about her. 18. Here she's happy. After death she's happy. The righteous one's happy in both places. She's happy thinking, I have done merit, gone to a good fate. She's happy much more. Practice what you have learned. 2 friends ordained. One followed the path of practice and soon attained. The other the path of study and became puffed up with pride. The Buddha showed how the one who attained could answer his questions much better than the one who studied. And he spoke these verses about them. 19. Even though reciting abundant scriptures, the heedless one, who does not what they say, like a cowboy counting others' cattle, does not partake of the ascetic life. 20. Even though reciting only few scriptures, but living in accordance with Dhamma, abandoning greed, hate, and delusion, understanding aright with mind released, that one, unattached here and hereafter, surely partakes of the ascetic life.